I wanted to start with a different conversation, Liam. Yesterday on 32 Thoughts, Elliot Friedman tossing it out there that the Oilers are interested or will be interested in signing Ty Emberson to an extension when the calendar flips to 2025. If you don't know the way that rule works, it's basically if you're on a 1-year deal, you're not eligible to sign an extension until the calendar flips. So you can't like sign a 1-year deal on July 1st and then like immediately sign an extension because that would be a way to like circumvent the cap, I guess. Um, so Emerson's eligible basically midnight tonight to sign an extension with the Oilers if he wants to, if they want to. And, Maynard in the chat right now says it's a no-brainer. And I agree. Like, it's absolutely a no-brainer. I wrote a piece. You can read it all up on the site right now. And I included my prediction at the end, which I'll get to. But Liam, when you consider, okay, they bring him in the Cody Ceci deal, and it was kind of apparent right from the jump in that deal that, like, hey, this isn't just a guy that they're getting to balance out the contracts or whatever. They clearly saw something in Ty Emberson, 24 years old, coming off his first season in the NHL, call it first half season. He only played 30-some odd games. Before that, it was a few years in the AHL. He won a big award down there, played with Chris Knobloch in Hartford for a season as well. Where would you like to see them come out on Ty Emberson? Is this something where if it's extension eligible Jan 1, you're like, hey, just give him another year. Let's extend this thing and kind of keep the experiment rolling? Or do you want to see them maybe push it a little bit with some serious term?
I think you just got to go a minimum of 2 years, and then whatever is around, if they go beyond that, that's fine too. I don't think you can go 1 year with him. He's a guy you probably want to get in around maybe between 1.5, 1.7, somewhere in there. If it's a 2 or 3 year deal, like, you need to get some value out of him, because at the end of the day, if in that second year of his contract he's a top 4 defenseman for you and he's making less than $2 million, then you've got an absolute bargain on your hands. And he's done really well since he's come in. Obviously, start of the season, a guy who was kind of rotated in and out of the lineup with Dermott and Stetcher, and now has just cemented himself in that top 6 role and even like a top 4 role in moments too. Reliable on the penalty kill. You could argue when he started going on the penalty kill with Ekholm, that's when it really started to turn around. A couple of fights as well this year. Like, he's been a great addition. I think another thing to consider too is like when people are saying like what's that guy's name? Epiphany. I knew I had it in my head somewhere. 2 or 3 years. Like, I think one thing to think about is when the Oilers got rid of Cody Ceci, he had a 3-point whatever deal, right?
Yeah.
The Oilers don't want to go that high for a guy who might be a bottom pairing defenseman for them. I think they really want to keep the value as low as they can.
Yeah, so let's get to a couple of comments here over in the YouTube chat, brought to you by our friends at Odd Company and the all-new Nation Beer Everyday Lager, a crisp, clean lager crafted not just for game day, just today, by the way, but every day. You can pick it up by going to liquorconnect.com, typing in Nation Beer, and a map will pop up. It'll show you everywhere around you that you can have Nation Beer and what liquor stores have it in stock. You can also just go direct to the source, one of the 2 Odd Company locations in Edmonton, their brewery downtown, their brewery out in the Ritchie area. Here's a couple of your comments. Let's start with this one. No more than 1.75 because he will ultimately become the 7th defenseman. Come trade deadline, I think we lock in on a top 4 D-man with term from just Sam. Here's where I'll disagree with that a little bit. You're shopping at the deadline for Troy Stetcher's replacement. You're not shopping at the deadline for Ty Emberson's replacement. I think the when healthy dream blue line for this team is Bouchard Ekholm, Darnell Nurse with a very nice high-end number 4 next to him, and then it's Kulak and Emerson as your third pairing that you feel confident starting in the D zone. Honestly, feel confident with them in any area of the ice, but I think Emerson is your 6, even if you go get someone. Like, you're not trying to replace Emerson in the lineup because he deserves to stay in with the way he's played over the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, totally. I wouldn't be looking to move him out of the lineup, to be honest. I think a couple of weeks ago we did, or at least I did on O&R, talk about like, who do you take out, him or Stetcher? But it was more of like a compliment to the way both of them had been playing rather than one playing worse than the other. But I think these last few games, just coming back from the break, and I know we said too, like, those games over the weekend aren't who they really are, but Stetcher for me is clearly the 6th best defenseman, and you can't keep playing him in that top 4 role. He's doing fine, but you need just to upgrade on that. And I even think moving Ty Emberson just into that top 4 role is an upgrade. And Epiphany said there too, got that one right. Stetcher doesn't even play on the PK. You need guys like Emerson in the lineup. He's too important now, I think.
Yeah. Adam is in and says 3x1.5 would be a dream. I feel a 3x1.75 coming, or sorry, a 2x1.75 coming. Original Pozar, who's watching the show live today. Hello. I think he's usually a
Hello.
podcast guy. Get the 3x1.65 million Emerson deal done. Take away the injury risk. If he gets hurt and doesn't play 50 games this year, he becomes a Group
Mhm.
6 UFA. That is very smart as well. You want to keep him under some kind of term. Y2 Bay says 3x1.75. Maynard says if you can get him for less than Vinny money, it's a home run. So where it's a little bit different than Vinny. So Vinny, when he signed his deal with Vancouver, had played, what would that be, 114 regular season games. So I guess by the end of this season, that is going to be right where Emberson is around actual NHL experience. Who knows how much he plays in the playoffs? Vinny did have 28 playoff games under his belt. And the other thing is, Vinny is signed that as a 28-year-old, right? Ty Emberson's going to be signing that at a younger age with less experience. So he'll be signing as a 21-year-old, or sorry, Jesus, a 25-year-old this offseason. So where I would go with Emberson is like OP talked about the injury risk on like becoming a Group 6 UFA. I think that's fair. But also for Emberson, you've only played 100 and some NHL games by the end of the season. At this point, you're still sitting under 100 at around 60 some. If you go to him and say, hey, we want to give you a 3-year deal, it's going to pay you 1.6 million a year for a guy who, again, a year ago he hadn't even cracked an NHL lineup yet, really. If you go to that guy and say, here's $4.8 million guaranteed, and you're going to get to be a UFA at age 28, and you're going to get to play playoff games, which we know how much playoff hockey can boost up the value of a shutdown defense first defenseman, however you want to describe him. If you go to him and say 4.8 million guaranteed, 3 years of security of being in the NHL, plus the upside of getting to be on a Stanley Cup contender, I have a hard time believing he would turn that down. And for the Oilers, if you're sitting there going, well, 1.6 is a risk, like blah, blah, I don't think there's that much risk. If he ends up being your number 6 defenseman, and let's just say he plateaus and doesn't get any better, is anyone complaining about 1.6 million for a third pairing defenseman? Maybe it's 500K too rich, but it's not the end of the world. And if he ends up hitting, and let's say he has a great playoff run, you don't want what happened to Broberg to happen, where Emerson goes and plays great in the playoffs for 2 weeks, and then you're sitting there being like, oh shit, now he's $3 million because there's a market for him and whatever. Like, get him locked in now. If he grows into a top 4 D-man, you're getting dirt cheap value for 2 more years. Honestly, if he takes 3 years, Liam, I'd be willing to go to 2 million.
I think too, with the cap going up, like I wouldn't. I would have to figure it out on a math level, and that's just not what our show's about, as we all know. What the equivalent would be like under this cap, like 2 million. What's that? Probably at 1.6, maybe. You know what I'm trying to say? Picking
Exactly,
a lot of million down. So yeah, I really don't think. I think it's a win-win for both sides. Whatever, if you can get him under $2 million, to be honest.
Got to factor in inflation, I think, is what smart people say, right?
Yeah, and then also the fact that you get taxed in every state that you play in. There's a lot of layers here. I didn't get a calculator for Christmas, so we're kind of screwed.
If the Canadian dollar keeps shit in the bed, I mean, you're getting US dollars to live in Canada. That's like an extra 30-40% right now.
Yeah, maybe we should get into the election a little bit and look at what both sides could provide for the economy.
Well, I know our next guest would love to chime in. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to ask anyone to chime in on the election today. What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.